So stay with me, right? We know that meditation alone can be a porthole and take us into spaces we would not normally be able to get into because of the state of our mind. But when we change the state of our minds, our bodies change. And when our bodies change and the way we feel changes, we can change the condition of what we plug into, right? And the frequency that we're putting off and vibrating just through meditation. But within that meditation, what are we meditating on? Now that's the question. There's so many different modalities and systems, right? That's what I'm talking about. To plug into. And what are they plugging into and how does it work? And you can get a concept of an idea of what that is through understanding these videos, these clips that I've shown you from Dr. Inky and from the Maru Foundation, okay? With Stan Tenen, I believe that's his name, that wrote the book, The Alphabet That Changed the World, you know, referring to light language using the Hebrew alphabet as a model of symbology. So anyway, these are different concepts and stuff that we're looking at, because what are we really seeing when we're looking at something, right? So what I'm teaching you is that symbology has many dimensions to it, and depending on what aspect that you have plugged into changes the concept of that symbology and the way that it becomes alive and interacts with us in our lives. And by using that symbology, along with movement and some other things, by layering, you could literally plug in and unlock a whole nother akash, a whole nother thing, okay? And that's how we create not new things, but combinations and different understandings of what's already there. Deeper concepts and revelations, because we've gone back through information. And so it's through reflecting that we grow. It's through acknowledging what's already there, like realizing that an herb can heal certain things because we've taken another look at it, because we've revised or added different combinations to, you know, a medication or a treatment that changes the whole aspect of it, that makes it work. You know, by removing one little chromosome, you totally destroy the way that DNA or that biology works. Okay, things are tightly woven, and the little things, don't forget about the little things, because they matter, or they don't matter. Either they congeal, they jive, they work, or they don't work. Anyway, much love to you and yours. This is Siren Buddha Medicine. I'm referring to this because I'm stacking your information in regards to SheGong, QiGong, therapeutic dance, right? And the use of symbology. And how that's relevant to SheGong, QiGong, and therapeutic dance that I was given through dreams and visions when I was healing my body. So this is relevant to me personally because the ancestors, through dreams and visions, gave me a dance, and I had no idea what I was doing at first. It was just trusting them and doing it. My body needed healing, and I had post-traumatic brain injury. I had sciatica and osteo, and I was in my early 30s. And so I also had, mysteriously, a stroke in the middle of the night while I was sleeping, and I woke up and one side of my face was drooping, and I was I used to have to use those little scooter chairs that you use to go in the grocery store to get around in the grocery store, and I walked with a cane. And little by little, I started listening to the guidance of my spirit guides, realizing what they were slowly. Started trusting the inner voices, which is interdimensional, right? And they started telling me what to do. And I went from this cane to a staff. And I didn't know what I was doing at first. And I suppose I needed more confidence because I was just kind of out there. I needed something to anchor me into reality, to show me that I could trust the things that I was being taught, and it wasn't just some psychotic random episode, right? As I had been lied to and told that these dreams, these voices and visions and stuff were when I was a child. So I wasn't very trusting of them at first. So what they did was they would teach me things and I would do them, and then they would lead me to people who were actually existed and systems that actually existed on the planet that had some aspect and relevance to what it was that they were showing me. And that's how I learned QiGong, therapeutic dance. And the use of symbology is what the first instrument, the first is how they teach me a lot of times, is showing me symbols. And those symbols can lead to so many other things, as I've been squawking about for a while. Watch other videos that I've done. Anyway, if you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. If you get it, it's for you. If you don't get it, it's okay. You know, move along and find something that you do get and do it well. I'm out. So when it comes to flocking and swarming and internal space, I'm talking about how interdimensionally space changes when it comes to number and proximity. So when there's an enmeshment, when there is a proper conjunction between elements, particles, items, then they synchronize. And through that synchronization, they create another force of energy because they're combined. And you can actually steer plasma fields and energy. So when you start layering thoughts, because thought forms are alive in their energy, when it comes to consciousness fields and you're looking at symbology, when it comes to your perception and your intention and the way that you decide to use whatever symbology that you've come up with, you can literally stack these concepts, these thoughts, these ideas that are alive, and come up with an inertia where you can utilize the energy, right? That inertia creates an aspect of energy that can actually be utilized as a part of your plasmic field. And in order to get there, you use symbology, because symbology is like a porthole. It takes you to a space interdimensionally, and depending on your concepts and your intentions is going to heavily impact the result of what you get out of how you use the energy that you've accumulated from your concept of stacking multiple thoughts and concepts through symbology.
Primary researcher's last name was Couzin, Couzin, and you can find a lot of it online. He was doing research as to how is it that fish, school together, that birds flock together, when you see them looking incredibly coordinated. And what he discovered was that there's like 3 phases of the motion. If there's, and they start to relate to each other and become interrelated at about 10. It's a point that Couzin himself doesn't bring out, but if you actually look at the data, you notice that there appears to be a phase change in the way that these creatures are moving, either not in coordination with each other or in coordination with each other at around 10. And they've done a lot of research since in terms of what these creatures are evaluating. Basically, I don't need to go into it. And that what appears to happen is, at least with some of them, is that there's first random motion, and then they tend to form a ring and then move off, which is very similar to the spiral and spiral vortex that creates the hand model. That is a really low res explanation of the relationship that Stanley explored, both in this paper, and if there's material in our book itself which goes into it in more organized detail.
What he had talked about is 10 people, in a room with love for each other, a common idea or goal, perhaps, and then perhaps utilizing the hand gestures in synchronicity to accomplish some.
Yeah, the idea is that resonance. The idea is 10 as a demarcation for a phase change. I think we've discussed it previously also that mathematically there is a difference between dealing with geometrical figures below 10 dimensions and above 10 dimensions. I think we dealt with this before. You can find it out in our book, but it's there in the math. There's something that happens at 10 somethings, 10 whatevers. And so of course for somebody who's drawn to anomalies that stand out, okay, 10 here, 10 there, 10 there, 10 in a minion. What does this mean? So this was definitely something that we explored.
Lovato, wasn't there an experiment with a cube and putting spheres inside the cube? And at the point when you had 10 spheres in the cube, the spaces between the cubes were either less or more. So the point seemed to be that at some point, the group is greater than the individual pieces when you hit 10. Something kind of magical happens. Can you remember anything like that?
The first part of what you were saying relates to what I was trying to describe with the math, and it has to do with it's not just a cube and just spheres, because we're talking math, so we're talking dimensionality in a mathematical sense, and the math has been worked out. It's there, whereby if you're trying to pack as many spheres within a cubical figure as you possibly can, what is the status of the empty space that's in the middle of, that has to be in the middle of that cube? Because, yeah, and what happens at 10 dimensions is all of a sudden that empty space becomes larger than its enclosing cube. And it makes no intuitive sense to us, I get that, but that's what the math says.
I think it gets larger than the individual sphere.
Oh, well, it's always that, but it's larger than the enclosing cube. And
okay.
That's the phase change. Because basically the empty space that's inside all of a sudden is bigger than what binds than its supposed boundary. And that's something to think about. There's a diagram in the book which makes it kind of clear. But if you think in terms of 10 people in a minion, having enough to have that resonance to perhaps make one's prayers or the prayers of the minion reach farther than otherwise. I don't know really how to express it, but change dimension, change resonance. Again, there was so much more to explore on this, but it gives some sense as to why 10 were I don't know, designated, noticed, whatever you want to say. There are traditional explanations for why there are 10, why a minion requires 10, but this is like something different that also points to it.
Daniel, did you have a comment?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the TARDIS, in Doctor Who. It's bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. It's I mean, in a kind of philosophical way, when your life includes other people, then you are, you're quite literally bigger on the inside than you are on the outside, and